Lately, I feel like I have really been seeing a theme when I'm on social media, but especially on LinkedIn. And maybe I'm just noticing it more. Maybe it's reflecting some parts of how I'm feeling. Maybe it's actually a shift. And after I share more about what I'm talking about, I'm going to share with you why I think it is and what's going on in our world and has been going on that's precipitated this and how we could do something with it. Given the way the world has been operating, especially in the last year and a half, so many, the workplace is shifting, obviously with AI, the election in the United States. There's just been so much turmoil and things being turned on its head. What's happened in the workplace in general is really unprecedented. What's happening with Black women and the hundreds of thousands of jobs that they have been that's been taken from them, and all the ways that companies are going to use AI and AI to make them more efficient, and AKA really make more money and improve their bottom line. And it's also going to be used to justify cuts of overspending that they already have that has nothing to do with AI. Payroll is one of the main controllable expenses of any company, any business. But the thing that I've been noticing more and more is the honesty and the candor around not speaking to it as burnout, but just the level of candor about the reality of being human, of operating in the world as it is. It is more from women. I'm not really seeing it from men because I think that's how men have been conditioned not to express, not to know their feelings, let alone express their feelings. But it's taken a lot for us to get to the place where anyone is feeling more agency and sharing how they feel on LinkedIn. And I even see people's comments on these posts that feel very PC, very politically correct. And what I'm noticing in my response is acknowledging the reality of it, that it is courageous and that it is part of what's happening, and all these ways that we have encoded the workplace of like what's professional, what's not, and leave your personal life out, and all these things that we know don't work and are unrealistic and actually aren't real. It's just like some idea. I'm not saying it doesn't provide some semblance of control, but it's asking people not to be human, really, because you cannot take one part of yourself and leave it in your car when you go into your job or when you enter a Zoom meeting. Yes, you can play a part to support a group situation, but you can't pretend to not be a whole person. And it's making us sick. What I'm speaking to specifically are the posts that are acknowledging the fatigue, the overwhelming fatigue of even the success, not just the devastation of like the job market, perhaps. And even though that is something that is still fairly unusual and might be alarming to some, what I'm offering for your consideration is it's a really good sign. And I'll just use this as my marker to give my thought a little bit of clarity for those that don't maybe think like me or might think I'm being optimistic or whatever. Like, I'm not a Pollyanna, even though I do choose to see the opportunity instead of just the challenge. And that's, by the way, self-preservation. That's a learned choice. When Artemis II, that just happened in the last month or so, they're sharing with us new colors of planets. They're showing us other sides of the moon. The pilot's coming back, like sharing so beautifully his humble response of even saying, I don't even really want to start talking because I haven't even fully processed this. What that mission exemplifies is how extraordinary humans are. All of that was made available through the work of people. Even AI is being designed by people. So this idea that we can't hold more than one thing, otherwise it's not professional. This idea that we can't handle big feelings in the workplace when they're already there. It's just a made up idea that we keep deciding is okay or true, or that we're going to go along with it. And if you don't feel like you have control or you're in charge, even when you are in charge, I've worked for organizations where the CEO was even from a marginalized group and was still behaving like the way it's always been, because that's the same conditioning. And they want to stay in their club, whether they think of it that way or not. They might even believe in that because that's all they know. But we know so many things of how we operate in the world right now do not work. We know that. Even before AI, Gen Z and these younger generations were already creating a different life, a different map for themselves. The values, this idea of the nuclear family, this idea of get married and register for all this shit and then someday buy a house and hopefully don't get into too much debt. Next thing you know, you're locked into a life, and then you're like, okay, wait, who am I? What matters to me? Oh, this has to matter to me because now I've created all this stuff before you even know who you are. So all of that is being really blown up. And I think it's a really good sign because it was already, it's not working. It hasn't been working for a very long time. You know, beyond the Industrial Revolution that took place after the war, that was really about assembly line jobs and creating an economy, we're not in that place. Yes, we still need to create an economy, but we don't have a shortage of creation. We have an opportunity to continue to evolve our thinking and how we run and operate and lead all of these things without doing the default the way it's been, because we're all kind of playing a part then. Even the best of us are playing a part because that's what we know. And then you have this like wild hair over here. Like I remember back in the day, it would have been Steve Jobs, you know, because he was a genius and was behind this company or what it became, he could eventually get away with it, you know, with what happened to his career. But unless you're that person that eventually has that cachet, you know, even what's happened with Elon Musk, you know, I think people were really curious and interested in him and all that he created. And then we started seeing the other sides of him with how he got involved in politics and all of that nonsense. We just started seeing it, at the end of the day, it just lands in a bunch of people and often behaving not so great because they're operating in an old model that is like being held by a string, but because they happen to have the string, it gets to stay somewhat floating. But the world wouldn't be existing the way that it is if it was working. My point is just the acknowledgement of this kind of honesty and candor. And my comment to this one woman that I saw today who was sharing about like, and I actually just did a post, I think it was the day before yesterday, talking about more than one thing can be true. You can be really grateful and successful and still want to blow your life up. You know, we evolve, whether we realize it or not. We are changing and moving and evolving. And she was sharing like her emotion. She was sharing the feelings that she was having and the tired, the fatigue that she's feeling, while also acknowledging her gratitude for all that's happening, for finally being, or for being in the life that is the life she has been wanting to create, the success. I remember I did, as I mentioned earlier, I did see a comment from someone that felt like very much, oh, it's good you're taking a break, you know? And my thought was like, this is very life-giving because to me it's honesty. And it only feels uncomfortable and foreign if you're still buying in and deciding to not wake up to the fact that the way the organization, the way the workplace is right now is not, if it's functioning in a different way than the average workplace, it's a unicorn right now, but it shouldn't be. It should be more of an average and a standard. We have, and I say that to go back to the Artemis, is like my point is I feel like we're living as though we can't solve these things. And there's no way that we can see new colors of planets, take pictures of different sides of the moon, but we can't figure out the workplace. We can't figure out how to address all these things. It's hard work. It involves a lot of history and a lot of people, and people are interesting and complicated, and we complicate things. But if you're somebody who's noticing this or you're feeling this, part of what I'm expressing is that it all can be true. Any part that says it has to cancel the other one out, that's just a made-up idea that's actually not living in reality. And sometimes things have to be named. Now, this is not my original thought. You maybe have already heard this, But I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember hearing someone say, two things can be true at the same time. And I was like, yeah. And multiple things can be true at the same time, not only in reality in real time with one person, but because there's multiple people that are often involved in situations and everybody has a perspective and a truth. And they don't have to cancel them out. They don't have to be canceled out because they're different. There's still ways of making decisions, of deciding where to begin, of knowing that you can always iterate, of somebody having to make a call. But that doesn't mean that there isn't space to have different perspectives, different opinions, even compelling opposite opinions. So this woman who's sharing, and I'm seeing more and more of this on LinkedIn, her truth, her reality of what she's experiencing. It's still the exception, but I applaud her. I applaud her. And I know that any person seeing that video, whether they identify it clearly inside themselves or not, and I'll start with women especially, know exactly what she's talking about. Know exactly what she's putting words to. Because being a human being is not for the faint of heart. It does require us to do and be and hold and experience way more than we could have ever anticipated or even believed that we could move through. I champion and live for the world that's living in truth, in reality. In reality. One that isn't contracted and constructed with ideas of how it should be, especially when the how it should be is clearly not working. So I just invite you to let it be okay, who and however you are. And I'm interested in your thoughts and your reflections of how are you seeing this? Do you know what I'm speaking to? Do you feel this? Are you still someone who's championing the way it's been? Does it make you uncomfortable? I would love to have this be a dialogue. So if you're open and willing, let me know. Introduce yourself in the comments. Share what your perspective is, and yeah, share any questions you have as well. I'm happy to speak more about certain things if there's specific questions. Actually, I would prefer that. My name is Jennifer Herrera, and I really hope you'll be here with me if this is the place that you feel that you connect with. I'll see you tomorrow.